Hey friends, my name's Caitlin. Welcome to my channel. I am here today to do the Reading Rush wrap-up to tell you how I did this week. I am very happy with what I did, so yay! You might notice that things around here are looking a little crisper, a little sparklier and shinier, and part of that's because it's like 100 degrees outside and humidity is like 2,000 degrees, so I'm sweating and a mess. But part of that's also because I got a new camera, so hopefully it's looking good. So, the Reading Rush, y'all. It was a good week. I had so much fun this week watching you on YouTube and all your Instagram posts. They were so creative. And I just wanted to shout out a few booktubers before I get started that have been creating awesome content this week, and as of recently that I've just been loving and that I've just been kind of living on this week. So shout out to Eden Wright. She's super sweet. Books with Shae is currently moving across the country and still managed to do the Reading Rush, and she's awesome. Then we have CJ Reads, who's new to BookTube and just the best and hilarious. And then Bookish Realm. If you're not following Bookish Realm, like, just go, please do it right now. You will be so grateful you did. It's just like, she's just so much joy and so like very calming, and I just love all the conversations she has in her videos. I also wanted to talk about books on Lala. Obviously, she's one of my favorite booktubers and probably one of yours too. But I want to talk about this week she got demonetized for her videos this week because she was doing this amazing thing at the end of her videos about 3 things we should care about. So she talked about things like Black Lives Matter and the erasure of indigenous cultures and people, and capitalism struck again and was like, we can't have this, we can't let people know what we're up to, and demonetize your videos, which is so angry for so many reasons. So please go watch her videos, support her and her channel, and support the issues that she talked about this week. Okay, so how did I do this week? Overall, I completed 8 books. Now, one of those books I only read like half of really in this readathon, so I don't know if it really counts, but I completed a total of 8 books in this readathon, not necessarily started. And I read 100. I read 1,561 pages, so very pleased with that outcome. The first book I completed was A Moonless, Starless Sky by Alexis Okeowo, and this was one that I was halfway through before I started the readathon, but essentially this is a piece of work that tells 4 different stories of 4 different people in Africa standing up to terrible regimes and powers in their country and making a difference. I thought that the stories themselves were obviously super important and stories that aren't often told. I feel like stories from Africa aren't often told, especially in our very Western community of BookTube. So I think it's very important that these stories are heard and listened to and acted upon. But the actual writing of this book kind of left me more to be desired. The author is a journalist, so I had high hopes. She's also from Nigeria, so that was great. But her writing was very, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then this happened. And I wanted more. I just wanted more from the language she used. I wanted more imagery, and I would have loved to see some of her own social commentary. I know it's probably because of her background of being a journalist. You're not really supposed to put in your own thoughts and opinions on the stories you're covering. I just would have liked maybe some resources or something to do after I read the book. I thought it would have been a little more effective. The next book I read is the book that kind of confused me, and that is The Half-God of Rainfall by Inua Ellams. And this was an epic poem that told the story of a demigod who was the son of a Nigerian god and Zeus, I believe. Again, this book was confusing to me, and I think it was more of a me problem. Maybe I just didn't understand it, but the bulk of the story, probably 70% of the story, was about this demigod and his career in basketball, which I didn't really understand the point of. And it seemed, from my reading and understanding, that the main point of the book was actually about his mother, and it was about the rape of women by gods and women standing up for themselves, which was not expected. wasn't expecting to read about that. I really liked that part of the book, but it was really only a small portion of it, so that was confusing to me. Then I read a really interesting book, My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and this book I really enjoyed. It was kind of unlike anything I've read before. I loved how it was told. It was told in very small chapters. So some of the chapters were like a paragraph and some of them were like 2 to 3 pages. And it really helped build the suspense of the whole book. It's about 2 sisters, and one of the sisters is a serial killer. Her boyfriends mysteriously keep dying because she's defending herself. And her sister comes in and literally cleans up the mess for her every time. And her sister's starting to question, like, this is a lot of people where you're defending yourself. Maybe you're not telling the truth. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe you're a serial killer. And so it was very interesting. All the characters were very, I don't want to say unlikable. They were frustrating. They kept making decisions and doing things that I was just like, oh my god, what are you doing? And some of them were genuinely unlikable. So I really liked that because it was very realistic and humanizing and kind of raw and gritty, which I really liked. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but because the characters were flawed and making bad decisions, the ending made sense with that. So I didn't like it personally, but it worked. Then I read the most touching and precious book, Small Country by Gäel Faye, and this is a coming-of-age story that takes place in Burundi. And it follows our main character as he grows up in a almost conflict-ridden Burundi, amidst the conflict of the Rwandan genocide that's happening and affecting his mother's family. It was very slow and very quiet. The writing was gorgeous. And then kind of like the last fourth of the book was very brutal, as to kind of be expected based on the subject matter, but just so well done, and I really felt for all the characters, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful read and a short read too. I think it was like 190 pages or something. I would pick this up if you were a fan of The Kite Runner. I thought the writing style and the kind of general idea for the stories were very similar. Then I read a super exciting arc. This book comes out in September, and that is One by One by Ruth Ware. I really loved her book, The Turn of the Key, that came out last year. So I was like, oh, my dog's crying. So I was excited to read this one. And this one is a book about a group of coworkers that go to this chalet in the French Alps, and there's an avalanche and everyone's stuck in this house and someone dies, and then more people start dying, and it's like, who's killing who? I had mixed feelings about this book. I thought the characters were all very stereotypical. I thought they lacked depth. I thought they were predictable. And because of all this, the plot twists and like the surprises were predictable as well. So I definitely wanted more from that front of the book. However, there was a moment where there was kind of like a reveal, and there's this terrifying moment of tension between some characters, and it was genuinely terrifying, and I loved it, and I just wish more of the book had that genius suspense in it. Then read 2 poetry books. The first poetry book I read was Felon by Reginald, Dwayne, and this is a poetry collection that really focuses on the criminalization of Black men in America, and I thought this was very well done. Both of the poetry books that I read this week really played well with form in very interesting ways. So in this collection, I particularly loved the poems that were blackout poetry. I thought it was super effective, so well done, and the rest of it was just stellar. I highlighted a bunch of lines. They were awesome. And the other poetry book I read was If They Come For Us by Fatimah Asghar, and this is a book about growing up in America as a Pakistani Muslim and living through 9/11 and the effects of that and the racism and the xenophobia. And it really focused on the idea of family, of home, about displacement, and about finding a chosen family. And I thought it was really well done. And my last book is kind of a little funky read. I shouldn't say funky, just different. It is the Monocle travel guide series to Istanbul, and this is a travel guide to Istanbul. And the Monocle does this awesome series of different cities throughout the world, and they have travel guides to them, and they're very beautiful, very well done, super interesting, obviously with a lot of pictures. I kind of accidentally read this book. There's some essays in here too. I wasn't preparing to read this, and then I got it in the mail and just sat down and read the whole thing. So it was fun. Also, they make beautiful coffee table books. I must say, how cute is this? So those were all the books I ended up reading for the reading rush this year. I hope that you did well, and I hope just to remind yourself that even if you read one book, you won, okay? Even if you read 10 pages, you won. If you read something, if you read a freaking cereal box, like, you're reading, and that's great. So I think it's also an important reminder not to compare yourself to other people, especially on BookTube. If you're seeing people who read a ginormous amount of books, just because you haven't read that many books doesn't mean you're any less than. If you read a story and you loved it and learned something from it, that's all that matters. So let me know if you participated in the reading rush this year. Let me know how you did. Link your wrap up down below, because I'm always looking for new booktubers to follow and new people to be friends with. Along those lines, I also vlogged, sort of, the reading rush on my Instagram stories this week, so if you want to be friends there, let's hang out. And I'll be back with another video pretty soon, so yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day.